Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, welcome back to online NPTEL course on research methodology for planning and architectural studies. In our previous lecture, we have discussed about different concept of research, and we have also understood the importance of a good research methodology to produce a meaningful research. So today we are at lecture number 2, and here we will be discussing about the type of research. Any book that you refer on research methodology, or maybe you just browse through different internet sources on type of research, so you will get many variety, many kind of research. Some things like descriptive research, sometimes it may be analytical research. So today we will try to understand the important classification of them, and also try to understand that when we go for such kind of research. So without any further delay, let us start today's content. So what will we learn from this lecture? So first we will try to understand different type of research which is very predominant. Maybe you will find something else apart from whatever we will be discussing today, but probably that is a subset of the topic that I am planning to cover in this particular lecture. And if you have any such kind of doubt on any other type which probably will not get from today's lecture, you can always write that to the forum, and I hope you have already registered in that forum, so we will address it. So we will discuss first the different types of research, then characteristics of different type of research, and also the example, because this is very important to understand that how we classify the type of research or research method that we should pick for our own research. Then we will summarize the whole learning out of this lecture. So if we consider the type of research, so maybe just to start with, we have one kind called descriptive research, then we have analytical research, then we have applied research, then fundamental research, quantitative research, and qualitative. We will have really a detailed discussion on this qualitative and quantitative research, because that is sometimes we researcher find difficulty to distinguish, and probably in terms of communication and other things do the mistake. So we will discuss that in detail. Then we have conceptual research, and on the other hand we also have the empirical research, and then I will also discuss about some other type of research as well. So the first in the line is the descriptive research. So what exactly it is? The term descriptive means is derived from the description. So it provides accurate portrayal of characteristics of any particular individual. It may be any situation, or it may be for any organization or a group. So what exactly it is? Let us go one by one to the characteristics of this particular research. So it mainly deals with everything that can be counted and studied which have an impact in our day to day life. Say if it is something like just I am giving example from the planning side, that for a particular region we are interested to know about the age distribution. So among total population, what percentage is child population, what percentage is adult population, and also the elderly. So in this case we go for this kind of descriptive research, and we just find out. So we just count the number and then represent in percentage and all. So in this case what we normally don't do, that is that we just define the characteristics of a particular phenomena without necessarily investigating the cause. Now in this case, as I already mentioned the example, that population age wise distribution that we are looking for, here we are just portraying that particular findings. Here we are not investigating why the elder population is more or why the child population is low. So that is not part of this particular thing. So we have to remember this part carefully. In this case also we review the description of state of affairs that is exist in the present. It is also known as ex post facto research, so which is giving you some sort of description through the numerical value. Descriptive research method can include survey, it can be also the observational study and the case study. So I am giving you example of a survey. Say you are interested that in a campus, in a higher education campus, that the student, how many of them are like using effectively their smartphone, okay, for online learning. So in this case we just survey and we can find it out that okay, in a particular program, that which particular year, like whether first year, second year, or the PG or PhD, the student who are using it for a online learning purpose. So we give that findings in terms of a bar chart or a pie chart. That is one example. Now observation study is something like where we don't go for a survey, we just observe. Say for example, I give you one example from, say in an intersection, traffic intersection, you are interested to make the count, vehicle count, and then you want to know that okay, in a particular intersection how many buses crossing that particular intersection, how many auto rickshaws are passing that intersection. So you make a tally, you make a count, and then we just show that particular description. And it can be also through the case studies, because sometimes you have multiple such study already done and then you just compare and showcase something on that. So say for example, frequency of shopping, preference of people, trip frequency of commuters. So here say for example, this is from one of our paper which depicts the trip frequency wise distribution commuters, and it is in a Delhi area. So where it is shown that almost Monday to Friday is 54%. So that indicates that most of the travelers that they are traveling daily, and there are also like some people who like only travel for one day. Now in this case this is just a overall trip frequency. If you want to know further, in that case definitely it is done through a survey. So you have to also ask that okay, in this particular 54% of daily commuters, how many of them are like male commuters, how many of are female, or maybe how many of are like the student, how many of them are in job. So like that we can classify further and we can describe. The only thing is that, which is very important here, we are not really investigating the reason, the cause of such kind of distribution. Hope this is clear to you. We will move forward to the next one, which is analytical research. And in this case definitely it is not just the description, but also it involves the critical thinking, logical reasoning, and analytical method to examine the pattern, trends, relationship. And in this case definitely the data is available to us, we have to just analyze it. So the difference between the descriptive and analytical, only main point is that for descriptive it is just the summarizing the findings, and in analytical we also need to find out the reason. So it focuses on understanding the cause effect relationship, that why it is happening. If we find that okay, in a region the elderly population is very less, okay, so what could be the reason? Or maybe if it is something that in a particular like traffic intersection the volume of private vehicle is more, why? So it may be that that particular stretch is having some kind of people who are living in that particular area, who are using that particular lane, is belong to a higher income group and they used to travel by car. So those kind of findings we have to report in this particular analytical research. In this case researcher tries to explain the reason, and this is very important for all of us, all researcher, why and how. So if something is happening, that is phenomena, that is just a fact. But why it is happening? If it is raining very heavily and it is some unprecedented rain, so the question is that why it is happening all of a sudden, or why it is like this. And then next is how. Why is the reason and how is that particular process. So we have to explain that. It also involves the critical examination of data or information to uncover patterns, relationship and underlying structure. So it may give you some sort of a pattern. So say for example the temperature pattern. Now in almost like we are in the month of December in India, so most of the cities are like having witnessing the winter. Temperature in Delhi may not be same in temperature in Jaipur. So there is always a pattern within Delhi, that there is some sort of daily variation that is happening. And based on that, what is important here, that is the projection. So if you find that okay, for a temperature in a particular uh, city or a region, that okay, in the month of December, first week, second week, it will be around say maybe 10 degrees minimum and the maximum is 22 degrees. So then probably you can forecast next year also, probably the range will be around that. I can give you a better example for that is a population forecasting, because as a planner, okay, whenever we plan any infrastructure, we also need to know the population who will be using that infrastructure. So population projection is very important for us. So for projecting the population, normally there are different methods that I am not going to discuss now, but in that case what is required, that you need past data, that normally we take population from census data. So maybe right now the latest data that we have in it's for 2011, and now also like to forecast for future population, we need to get the data for 2001, 1991, and based on the requirement we can even go backward in that particular line, and based on that we make a projection. So it's like analyzing the trend and then project. It relies on various analytical methods and techniques. It requires logical reasoning and systematic thinking to draw conclusion, because it is something always you have to analyze. Say I give you a different example. Say you visit a doctor and you just say, doctor, that I am having some sort of feverish kind of feeling and all. So doctor will ask you some follow up questions, like whether your appetite is okay, or maybe the urination is okay as per like the number of times and the volume. And based on that, doctor may prescribe you something based on the symptoms, or else doctor may also prescribe you that go for this kind of blood test, urine test and all. After that, through different kind of values, like maybe in the RBC or the platelet count or any other such kind of indicators, doctor can identify the possible reason, whether it is just like seasonal thing, not to worry, or it is having serious virus infection or bacterial infection. Accordingly treatment can be done. So in all these aspect, like if we just go for a symptomatic, probably it is just based on certain past experience of the doctor, one can prescribe. But going for the synthesis, going for the test, and then finally take out the actual reason and prescribe medicine for treating that particular disease is much more accurate, and we have much more belief in that. Similarly, you just think this aspect for the planning exercise. Now if you only understand that okay, in a city the main problem is happening due to the population growth. Population, if you reduce it by any means, problem will be solved. So this is just like a overall thing. But why population is increasing in a city, why the problems cannot be solved, what are the issues, if you go for further synthesis and better analysis based on data, probably that analytical research will give you the right direction to solve this. Now already I have told about the example of population forecasting. Then say for example the studying patient health records to identify risk factor for a particular disease. So as I already mentioned, even if you go to a doctor, before prescribing the medicine, a doctor always asks you about, do you have anything like any allergy to any such kind of drugs, or is there any past record. Say normally nowadays is very common like diabetes and all, and there is a correction to the like is there anyone in your family had that particular problem and all. So like that, the record checking and analyzing that is also part of that. Analyzing data related to the environmental factors to assess the impact of human activities on ecosystem. So this is also analysis, like when we say now at the age of like global warming, climate change, and there is some kind of depletion in the ecosystem due to human intervention. So those kind of things can also be studied here. Another example, analyzing the impact of government policy on country's GDP growth. So this is something, again you can see that okay, the government just announce certain policy, certain scheme for betterment of people in the country, and then how it is going to help to boost. It may be some kind of incentives, it can be some other kind of aids that to help certain community in the country. So it's much more of the analysis of the data and finding the reason and then bring the conclusion for solving the problem. Next in that line is the applied research, right? So it aims at finding solution for immediate problem facing by a society or an organization. So a research can be done in different way. One may be that for the advancement of the current theory, okay, whatever there is a law, some theory, some phenomena, and then you keep on experimenting or keep on investigating to improve it, okay, the way now we have. So maybe the earlier concept, like I can give you one example, like normally we used to get from our early school days that what is the actual shape of our earth. So unless otherwise some kind of advancement happens, so it was something like it can be like a cuboid, it can be something like a sphere, it may be something not exactly the sphere because like it is not equidistant, like if you take the diameter of the earth. So all such kind of experiment that is happening, it's keep on solving that particular issue. Now in this particular case, the solution for immediate problem that we need to address, which is like applied. So normally when we go for some kind of taking up some kind of real challenges, real problem, and we want to solve it through our research, so that is much more of a applied research rather than just the theoretical research where we improve some kind of functions, law, etc. So some of the characteristics of this applied research, it aims to solve specific problem, thus finding applied research have immediate practical implication. That say if I find out in a particular traffic stream there is a congestion happening because of certain bottlenecks, there are more kind of access to the main road, and that's why like people get stuck to that particular traffic jam. Then after analyzing all these phenomena, if we can come up with okay, let's make a underpass or maybe a flyover which can solve the issue, and then based on such kind of experiment, it can be done through the simulation or it can be done through some kind of analytical methods, then we will implement. It also focuses on specific practical goals and immediate application that it is required. Say we all witness like bad phase of our life that last 2020 to 2022, that is the COVID pandemic. So that time also the immediate research that was required to find the vaccine of it, and definitely it took some time, but actually it happened. So that was something you can say that some kind of applied research where there was a need to establish this. Not only the vaccine, it was all like PP kit, it may be the mask or it may be other like kind of things. So how to make it available in the market, right? It also addresses, the applied research addresses practical issues faced by industry, organizations and communities. Thus, like we have to take that whether it is a problem of the society or a particular organization, so we can take up that. It utilizes the existing theories and knowledge and create practical solution. So whatever the theory that we have, we apply that and then try to find out the solution. It also emphasizes the collaboration with stakeholders and application of the findings, because it is always like, whenever you are coming up with a solution, so also you need to discuss with the takers, that whether it is you are solving a problem to the medicine industry, then you have to go through some kind of trials, like first it may be the animal trials, the human trials, to get it approved. But in terms of, say for example, you are trying to solve it for a traffic scenario, a transportation planning perspective, in that case you have to discuss it with that particular traffic management organization. It may be the traffic police or it may be the city authority, so that you need to find it out. Now coming to the examples, already I have given some of the examples while explaining this. So let us just understand that, okay, to develop and test method for remediating environmental pollution, and this is one of the major issues in Indian cities, metro cities specifically, that say for example Delhi, because of this heavy pollution and all, they are closing down the school for like some duration, especially in this particular winter season and all. Investigating the phenomena and then by that reducing the fraud on social media. So this is again a emerging field of research. Now we are much more relied, or maybe get very much accustomed with the social media, and then there might be some kind of fraud. So how to develop certain technology and all to solve it. Optimizing daylight performance in an office building. So in this case, definitely you use certain software to see that particular orientation of the building, then the fenestration of the building, materials, then type of window and the window materials. So like that, the objective is to maximize the performance. Another example is assessing the impact of bike sharing programs on urban mobility. So this is something where bike means the bicycle. So in under smart city program, many such kind of cities adopted for bicycle sharing system or the bike sharing system, where you don't need to own the bike or cycle. You just need to unlock that particular cycle which will be available in the cycle stand through different application app, and then you can use it up, like fulfilling some tariff and all. So there also how it can help, like that can be one example. Exploring sustainable design strategy for high rise building. So this is again from my architectural background that I just quoted this particular example. Moving forward, then we have this called fundamental research. So in this case, this is something, the investigation of basic principles and reason for occurrence. And here it is much more of hardcore research. Normally also we refer this as like a basic research. So in this case, the study and investigation of some natural phenomena or relating to pure science. So they are like called the basic research. So in this case, we try to understand the reason for different event, process and phenomena. Now some of the characteristics of this fundamental research: it searches for generalized ideas and information. It has a broader perspective, unlike the applied research, which is much more focused and to solve the practical problem. It utilizes the basic processes and sampling method to come up with the solution. It explains the general reasons behind event and occurrence, why it is happening and all. Research and extract as much of data as possible in this case. So try to find out that particular reason of it. In this case, different talks and state in technical language that you need to communicate that these are the new findings in that particular lead. So okay, so you can see in medical science or something, each day you are getting some kind of update that okay, this particular effects of this paracetamol may cause this side effect, or this is something that in this combination you can apply in certain kind of diseases. So those kind of things are keep on happening in the field of research. Example, like the relationship between academic stress and performance of student. So in this case, maybe we have to find out the reason for it, why, like whether under stress student they can perform well, because this is something nowadays we find very common, that the students they are under stress either due to the placement, or maybe some other at the student age certain other family issues or the relation related issues and all. So this kind of stress, and here the example is on the academic stress and the performance of the student. Now the other thing, other example here, it's like the change in groundwater level and its impact on the water crisis. So then this is again like we have to search the reason. It's very fundamental and keep on experimenting on that. Okay, so with that we are moving to this particular quantitative research, and let me tell you one thing, that though we are discussing this into different heads, but sometimes there is overlapping area. Even in the applied research, it can be quantitative, it may be qualitative, or it may be a combination of both, which is called as a mixed method. So in quantitative research, it's explored and investigated phenomena that can be expressed in terms of quantity. So this quantity is very important for that. Then the characteristics, it is the empirical research method that deals mainly with the systematic collection of data and interpretation of the numerical data. That okay, I just count something, that okay, the rainfall is 20 mm, or maybe this is something that where like we just say that in a particular highway the vehicle's average speed is around 80 kilometer per hour. So we just through the camera, through the radar gun, we just take out that data and try to make out that okay, this is the maximum percentage of vehicle which are achieving this speed, or this is the vehicle where below the average, etc. The aim of this quantitative research to quantify and analyze the relationship, also the pattern or the trend through statistical analysis, right. This type of research often used to test hypothesis, identify the cause and effect relationship, and make prediction. So in this case also it is very clear that it is one type of applied research, but in a quantitative manner. So here the new term that probably we are discussing here, the hypothesis. So what is the hypothesis? So for conducting any research, I take the example of applied research. Any phenomena you take, say the issues, the traffic congestion of a city. So this traffic congestion of a city is just the result, it is the effect. What should be the cause? Is it the number of cars is increasing, or it is something like the number of population in that city is growing faster than the expectation, or it is something that the roads are not proper, or the roads are fail to achieve that kind of speed which is required. So there may be multiple reasons for this. Now in this particular case, we can assume, or we can just make our hypothesis, the assumption is that if the population of a city can be controlled, the congestion can be released, or congestion can be reduced. It is having certain kind of direct inverse relation, that increase in population, or like rather I can say that it is having some kind of direct relation, not the inverse, that okay, if you increase the population, then you will also get more congestion on road. Or maybe you can say that if you make more flyovers, then the congestion will be reduced. So in this case probably the relation is something which is inverse. Some of the examples in this case, like to analyze the traffic patterns at a busy intersection that I have already mentioned, to assess the effectiveness of a new teaching method. So this is from education side, in improving student performance, that in the teaching pedagogy we just try some new deliberation method, or way of teaching, then how to see that how student can take it, and then what is the effect of that particular new technique in the student performance. Now the other example, like tourist satisfaction towards hotel facilities at destination. So many a times, like we do a tourism research, and then we try to understand the tourism like tourist perspective, that how much satisfied they are with the facilities at destination. That if they found in the past experience they found that this particular location had good hospitality, then probably they will revisit that place once again, or they can recommend that okay, you can go there and this is a beautiful place, you will get good accommodation, or vice versa. If it is like a bad experience, so that will also spread. So this is something that also we can do some survey. And assessing the impact of zoning regulation on property value. So this is again a planning where, like you can make certain zonal regulation, and then accordingly the land value, how it is going to change, land value or the property value. The other example, quantifying the demand of for utilities and services to plan infrastructure upgrades. So here definitely, like to give a proposal that what is actually required, you also need to understand what is there and try to identify the gap in infrastructure, that this much is required, this much is available, so this much to be procured. But that also in a sequence, that okay, it is not that it is required tomorrow, if there is some sort of priority to be made. So this particular quantitative research can help you out in this. So we'll discuss in detail this quantitative research and qualitative research, and then the difference between these two and where they can overlap in our next lecture, which is like your dedicated lecture on quantitative research versus qualitative research. Coming to the qualitative research, is concerned with the qualitative phenomena, and this phenomena is written like or involving the quality or the kind of any kind of behavior. It may be the human behavior, it may be the like something which is for a system it is happening. So some of the characteristics of this qualitative research is it aims at discovering the underlying motives and desire using in-depth interview, useful in behavioral science, where the aim is discover the underlying motives of human behavior. So while talking to a person, like you just interview a person to understand, not in a very structured quantitative way or in a structured questionnaire, you just interview that what his or her perspective towards the global change, and how one can think that how you can make improvement in your city. So that kind of qualitative judgment you can derive from such kind of interview. Qualitative research is a method that collects non-numerical data. Mostly in this case we include text, images, audio recordings. So we just go for interview, then we apply certain text mining, or we try to find out that okay, what is the narrative of that. The goal of qualitative research is to understand the meaning of people's experience and behavior in their own words, rather than just quantifying them. Because when we try to quantify, it will come under the quantitative research category. So what are the different means of doing the qualitative research? It can be interview, it can be focus group discussion, where we initiate a discussion and then try to come out with a solution that everyone actually believes that that is the most potential solution for the given problem. It can be only the observation. You can just do a photographic research, that you just try to capture some images in a sequence in a purposeful manner which will portray the problem, and as well as that you analyze it and give the solution. It can be also the narratives. So especially like some cases, like if you want to do something, the value, cultural value, aesthetics, so in those cases this kind of research is very much pertinent. Coming to the example, so first example is using qualitative methods to understand public perceptions of transportation. So in this case, say it is not like you go and just collect the data in terms of some rating or some kind of you quantify how many people are using public transportation, or like transport infrastructure, how they are happy. So it's just about understand their perception. So if there is an image in common people that okay, the public transportation normally it is not good, it's very crowded, you should not like board that particular public transportation in a city if you have other options. So those kind of things can be done under the qualitative research. Using participatory method involve communities in identifying and addressing the social concerns. So here it is the public participation. You can go for a focus group discussion and then try to come out with the solution, and there will be some community belongings. So that is very important in nowadays research, that participatory co-design approach, so that you can take it here. Analyzing the storytelling as a method to capture indigenous knowledge related to the land use management. So here also, like, we just try to find out that over time in a temporal manner, that how things have changed in that traditional way, that land resources, how they manage and all. So in this case also it can be done through qualitative research. Documenting and preserving cultural heritage through qualitative assessment for a historic city, that already have mentioned earlier. Conducting focus group discussion to understand community perspective on proposed urban development. So this is now also very important. Now whenever a city is making a master plan, so in the preparation of master plan there is one particular stage where you have to go for a stakeholder consultation. There you take all those approaches which help to get the confidence of the citizen or different stakeholders, that okay, this approach, probably this particular master plan or this particular zoning is really okay for most of the stakeholders, or if there is any correction that can be amended before finalizing it. Okay, moving forward, now sometimes we also like talk about conceptual research. In this case, it is a methodology where research conducted by observing and analyzing already present information, often referred as a theoretical research, aiming to advance the understanding, the knowledge. It focuses on development and exploration of concept, theories and ideas. Conceptual research does not involve conducting any practical experiment as such. So in this case, like examples if we go through, creating a conceptual model that emphasizes the importance of inclusivity in planning process. So many a times you must have heard about inclusiveness, inclusive design, inclusive city, etc. So a conceptual model can be prepared. Proposing conceptual model showing relationship between physical form and land use pattern for a city. Developing a conceptual model that considered the temporal dimensions of planning, that okay, that has the change or the growth that has happened. Proposing a conceptual model to explain different learning style and their impact on educational outcomes. So again, in this case is much more of a concept basis, and there is no practical experiment involved in this. Before going to the next one, so this is also required at the initial stage. You should also think about some kind of conceptual model, and then you go to validate, and for that you just try to understand that what type of information you require, whether that can be done through experiment or that requires certain sort of simulation, that you need to find it out. Coming to this category, this is the empirical research, is much more on the data. So empirical research is a type of research that relies on the collection and analysis of empirical and observable data. It is much more similar to the analytical research. Involves the systematic use of evidence obtained through observations. It can be measurement, it can be experimentation, to answer specific research questions and test the hypothesis, that whatever the assumption, the effect of this on this is true or it is not true. So we normally go for rejecting the null hypothesis or fail to reject null hypothesis. So this kind of statement we use. So we will discuss that in our subsequent lecture as well. Structured and systematic approach in this particular process we just take up, and then for that implementation and analysis is also part of this kind of research. Empirical research often involves the formulation and testing of hypotheses. Empirical research can use either quantitative method, it can be also the qualitative method, or it can be like your mixed method. So in all such cases, like it is something that we deal with that particular information to bring out certain solution which is implementable. For examples, like develop a survey to assess resident well-being and satisfaction for a location, investigating impact of air pollution on respiratory health diseases in an urban area, exploring the impact of social media. So in this case, the example is pretty similar what we have discussed in the applied thing, but here empirical means it is not conceptual. So it's head to head comparison is like in conceptual, it is just a conceptual where we don't do any experiment. In empirical, the experiment and the analysis is obvious. Coming to the other type of few research that you can find in some of the sources over like books or internet. So exploratory research is a type of research that conducted when a researcher is investigating a new topic. So explore, okay. So it is something like where you have the very little or almost no such kind of past literature. So for that it is exploring the new ideas. So in this case, explore, discover and generate new ideas and insight is something that you can define or characterize this particular research. It provides a better understanding of a poorly understood phenomena, or it is identify a new one. So initially, like when we have certain idea, okay, so this could be a virus, it could be a bacteria, and then probably you explore more and finally say, okay, it is something neither of these, or maybe it is an advanced version of something. So those kind of aspect that is required for the exploratory research. So always venturing for a new or upgrading the initial very poor or conceptual idea, we can use the exploratory. Policy oriented research, which is nowadays very important. It is specifically designed to inform and influence the development, implementation of different policies, like the primary focus on generating knowledge that can be used by policymakers, practitioners, etc. The policy oriented research is centered around addressing real world problems. So if there is a policy, okay, if we think of a zero carbon state policy or something, so to achieving towards that, what kind of strategy that we need to make, so that we need to find out through the research. So that is something like the policy oriented research. Now the last category in this particular case is the action research. It involves something the actively engaging in a cycle of planning, acting, observing and reflecting to address issues of a real world problem. So normally in this case, we just think that okay, this is the problem and then that should be done. So we make the planning, we take the action, then we observe the changes, that whether it is actually solving the problem. If that is true, okay, that should be reported, the conclusion can be made based on that. Then again this is a cyclic process. So basically it is something like whenever there is some sort of solution to be given to a problem, we go for a immediate action research kind of thing. So it involves collaboration between researchers and practitioners, emphasizing the active participation those directly involved into this. So that means that okay, this is your problem, our organization come up with certain problem to you, you give a solution, and then if there is some rectification, then you again modify and bring out the solution. The process is iterative, as I already mentioned. Unless you reach to a reasonable solution, or which is like a satisfactory solution, you keep on doing this planning, acting and observing and reflecting in the cycle. Action researchers must consider ethical principle, including the informed consent, confidentiality and well-being. So this is very important. When you take some kind of involvement of the other party, and also this data consent and all, that is very important. We'll discuss over it, the data ethics and all, in one of our lecture. Now coming to the summary, so we have discussed various kind of research: descriptive research, analytical research. Descriptive, in short, it is just the description. Say example, frequency of some kind of trip, or in a region male female distribution. Analytical, where we analyze the thing. Applied research is much more like practical one. Fundamental research, to make advancement in the basic and fundamental area of research. Quantitative, which deals with the quantitative data and numbers. Then you have qualitative assessment, where you can have those kind of observation survey, focus group discussion, public participation, ethnographic research, etc. Conceptual, where we develop the conceptual model to solve a problem. Then empirical, which is much more on the numerical thing, which can be quantified, which may be the qualitative in nature or maybe mixed method. And other type like policy oriented, action oriented, exploring new idea like exploratory research. So with that, we conclude here in this particular lecture, and I'm sure that there will be certain questions out of this. So please let me know by writing in the forum. We'll address that. So these are the further readings, and then with that, in our next lecture, which is on qualitative versus quantitative research, with much more in detailed explanation of these two, with examples, with different advantage and disadvantage. So with that, thank you again for joining the course, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.